Hello, everyone. And if I can get a few more faces moving, that would be great, if you don't mind. Um, that's just one of my preferences, if that's okay. Good morning again. I am coming to you in the middle of a snowstorm, so I haven't had any problems yet, but uh, I just get to watch the snow fall outside and slowly fill up my driveway. Um, I am going to share my screen. Thanks again to Doug for this morning. That was great. And much of that will actually tie into this presentation. Um, I'm just going to launch right into the agenda, and we're going to look at what is authentic communication. First of all, it's like you hear the word authentic all the time. What is it? What does authentic communication mean? Why do we want more of it for acceleration? And then we're going to zoom in because of time. We're not going to do everything, so we're just going to zoom in on a few oral language strategies. Some of you might be familiar with them, but I want you to think about how can oral language in particular um, be this acceleration force for kids for learning? How can it also, not only meet their academic needs, but also meet their social and emotional needs at the same time? So there's a lot of power in them. And then we're going to look at we'll zoom back out a little bit to also talk about reading and writing and other strategies. How do we enhance everything we do with more and better communication? Is that okay with everyone? Okay. Um, good, because it's too late. I'm going to also enable the chat so I can see the chat. I got to get all my windows open. All right. So language learning, this is a nice quotation by Courtney Kasdan, and she's one of the more famous people in the area of classroom discourse, wrote a book called Classroom Discourse. Language is learned not because we want to talk or read or write about language, but because we want to talk and read and write about the world. So I think that's still true, even for us, but it's even more true. Some of us are kind of language geeks, and we like to learn all the ins and outs and grammar and all that. But most kids really want to use language. It's a little bit like a lot of us with our cars. We don't really need to research every inner working of the motor, but we definitely want it to work. And so it's similar to that. We want it to get us places. We want it to do things. And that's really what we need to tap into if we're going to get more, I would say, more accelerated thinking, learning, and content and language from our students. So authentic communication, I have this sort of contrast between pseudo communication, which is still hearing language and maybe seeing language and watching kids read, whatever. So there's language happening, but it's pseudo because it's really being used in non-meaningful ways. It's mostly for points. It's mostly to show the show that I learned something. And after a while, that you start to reduce your thinking down because you're just like look at that. That's a multiple choice test there. How many people are excited when they see that picture? Right? Not too many. A few people. I'm not so worried about the few people that are excited about that. But most people, kids included, they just don't get stoked about that. When you say, "Oh yeah, you're going to take a test on Friday," it's more of a kind of the stick, right? Well, if you don't study for the test, you're not going to get the points you need for the grade. So it's really not, and Doug talked about motivation and engagement. Um, Whereas authentic communication is, as you would think, using language to do meaningful things. And I put those letters there: reading, writing, listening, speaking. Conversing is the C. R is representing, and this would be like artistically, not necessarily with words, but artistically, movement, visual and performing arts. And then interpreting would be interpreting those things in visual and performing arts and that kind of thing. So I'm trying to really cover all of communication, even the stuff that we don't do as much in school, although I think we should do more of. In terms of really getting that full spectrum of what is communication. How are we talking with each other, and how are we, building up a better world through communication, not just getting points? What would you rather do? Most kids would probably rather be on the right side there, building up a building, doing something constructive rather than just kind of raking up points. I put a fly there. Any guesses why? Just looking in the chat, just in case it's annoying. There we go. I like that. It dies quickly, fly on the wall. It's mostly the annoying part. So if pseudo communication doesn't bug us, you like the pun? If it doesn't bug us, then it's going to keep on going. Pseudo communication is rampant in our schools. I'll just put it this way. We might think we're doing authentic, but if you were to really get inside the kid's mind, I don't recommend it all the time, but you get inside their minds, are they actually talking to build up an idea, to communicate a thought to someone else? Or are they kind of doing it just because the teacher said, or just because I'm going to get my points? So we're really looking at how do we get kids, and I think I have on here, I think it says just, is it answer getting or idea building? So we're trying to shift over, and I won't say everyone all the time, but more kids more of the time into, this authentic communication. We're never going to get, 25 kids perfectly authentically communicating all at once. Maybe if off and on, but for the most part, it's just going to be, how do we move more kids to more authentic communication in the classroom? And it's human nature, right? Communication is a lot of work. Is this activity worth it? That's what we're thinking. You're thinking that right now. You're thinking, is it worth it for me to sit here for an hour, listen to Jeff, watch the slides? It's a lot of work to put his words together with the slides. Is it worth it for me? Now, you're not getting tested on it, right? You're actually doing something, hopefully, constructive in your setting, right? In your setting, wherever you are, you're hopefully going to use this. That's why you're listening to this. That's why you're here on a Saturday morning, because you want to make your school, the world, a better place, and you want to help your kids. So, but that's not always the case in our classrooms. When we're just kind of slapped down, you got test quizzes. Here's a curriculum written by someone 5 states away, and boom, boom, boom. So we're really trying to make, how do we make every activity worth it? So that's kind of one of our questions. And if we do that, then we accelerate. If not, it's kind of same old, same old. And I would say there was a lot of pseudo communication happening before COVID. We needed acceleration back then too. But now we need it even more. And so getting kids engaged, getting them interested, especially talking, because they, as everyone knows, you can follow any research about shadowing or anything like that, and you'll see kids talking, half minute, 1 minute, 2 minutes, an entire day. And they need practice in communicating, not just saying the stuff, but also interacting with a wide range of other kids. It can't just be, the adult or the one partner next to them. It has to be, this is where those communication skills, the social skills, they come from frequent and messy practice all day long. All right, so I have these 3 features of authentic communication. So, if we can enhance everything we do with these 3 features, then we've got something. Well, we'll get some acceleration. The first is using, are they building up an idea? An idea could be a concept or claim. I also count in there, argumentation, which is building up 2 ideas. Everyone do this with their hands. Building up 2 ideas and deciding which one weighs more. So that's kind of an argument. It could be a decision making. It's a big deal because there's a lot of really bad arguing and bad decision making going on out there, as we know. Just watch the news, right? And so we want our kids to be better decision makers and better arguers than we are. And so some examples, you're thinking, what's an idea? We have ideas in our head all the time. They're mostly unfinished. And notice the ideas in there. You can't probably read them. But I'm looking for this mindset of, I learn most by pushing myself and others to build up ideas to be as strong and clear as possible. How many of your students think that as they walk into the classroom? And so this is something we do need to think about. What's the mindset of learning? What's the kids' philosophy of learning? What does learning mean? And whatever class, what's it mean in math? In math, is it, and I ask math teachers a lot, I say, what, and they're thinking, they just come in, they want to watch me do a problem, then they work either on their own or in groups, and they do the same thing. And why? Because that's math. And then it's to prepare for getting points on a test, right? So rather than that, we're looking to build up a math idea. How do you build up a math idea if you're in math? How do you build up a robust historical concept or a claim about what really happened back in history, rather than just memorizing? We still have to remember things, if you want to say memorize, but why are we memorizing? For idea building, something that's going to last and it's interesting and I get to interact with others? Or is it for a test and choosing between A, B, C, or D, right? Or just writing an essay. So one idea, for example, this is this idea kind of stemmed from the giver. Our memories make us human. So the idea started, and then this kid, let's say in her mind, started building up the idea, not just from stuff from the book. The stuff from the book is important. We're not going to forget that. But also evidence, examples from your own life. Look at that up in the left, my memories of my grandma. Now, why is that so important? It's not just to, definitely makes her feel good. It's not just to connect to her background, which is, maybe that's the number one, but it's also because it allows you to share who you are with others. And there's an information gap, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. That's one of the features of authentic communication. But I don't know anything about your memories of your grandma. So I'm looking at Barb here. Maybe she says, well, my memories of my grandma, I think, would fit into this. And I suddenly am going to ask questions now. I know I read the book. There's no information gap when you write stuff about, if she says Jonas risked his life, yeah, I agree. I have that too. Not much conversation there. But if she starts mentioning, oh, part of my idea building is my memories of my grandma, I don't want to, we're not going to go all over the place with, but it's relatable. It works. I'm going to ask her questions. And that's going to be authentic, because I want to know, I'm trying to build up my idea up there, our memories make us humans. And I have this really good example from Barb that I don't know. That's where language is going to happen, and it's going to be authentic. We're not just trading, right answers to make someone happy. And you can also do images. It's really, and what goes in here, I do have different colors here, kind of for clarifying or, examples or evidence. It doesn't, they should be really very similar color, because you can kind of use them for both. I also have pictures. You can use anything you want that builds up the idea. That's the nice thing. You're building up an idea, and it's whatever works. If it's way off, it doesn't relate at all, then it's not going to work. But we're trusting, and this is a part of what I think Doug was saying, we're trusting students to build, not just to memorize the stuff that we tell them to memorize. We're trusting them. Science, wind and water change the shape of the land. Again, there's some personal examples and also stuff from the book and teacher demonstration. This is a way for us to fit all the stuff that goes on, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in a school day. And this is a way for kids to say, well, wait, how is this going to relate to building up this idea that we're building? I want kids to say that. And if it's just some random standard covering thing in the curriculum that doesn't really relate to our idea building, it's not going to stick, and it's actually going to waste time. What's this? Multiply regular fractions makes them smaller. Okay, nice mathematical idea. If a kid, my test for an idea, by the way, for all of you, is if a kid says it, do I have both thumbs up? Yeah, that's what we're learning. I like it. That's my first part. The second part is it buildable? Is it something do I want to ask more questions about it? So if your kid says this idea to you, do you just say, oh, okay, you got it. Check off the box. Let's move on. Or do you say, yeah, I like that. Now give me some examples. Wait, explain that to me. Clarify it. Give me some problems that we did. Give me some problems that you made up yourself, which is important in math, for you to make up your own problem. So we're really looking at this idea building concept. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was a critical moment in U.S. history. Es importante tener amigos que sean diferentes a mí. Kind of a mixture maybe of Spanish, English, visual, whatever works to build up that idea, right? It's about communication. It's not about correctness at this point. And then true heroes help others, all right? So I don't know where that came from exactly, but here's an example of one teacher the next day after I presented there. She had these large Lego blocks, and she had kids read two different articles. Why is that important? I want to see it in the chat. Okay, perspective, good. Offering choice, good. Synthesis, choice. Contrast. Good. Okay, all those things. And I'm going to add one more thing. Remember what I said about having Barb had her personal example of her grandma? There's an information gap too. It's like a jigsaw. That's why jigsaws can work well, because kids are experts, right, in whatever their text is, and they go back. They go back to their home group, right, and the home group is like, "Hey, I need you. I didn't read that, and I don't want to read it. Tell me." Right now, there's some things we can do with jigsaws to make them better as well. We'll talk about it at the end. But for the most part, a jigsaw is a natural information gap activity. And so that's what this does. Two articles. Oh, I have this stuff. Oh, well, let's write it down. I didn't have, tell me more about that. I didn't read your article. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. We want that, that exchange. So in the chat now, I would like you to write an idea. And it's in one sentence. It is not a question. It is not a phrase. It is not a topic. It needs to be a sentence. It can be a short sentence, simple sentence, but it has to be a sentence. And the reason we're doing this is to start building kids' abilities to think in paragraphs and to, I don't care about writing right now, but I want them to start thinking in, kind of a main controlling topic sentence or a thesis statement, if you want to call it that, for a bigger essay-like thing. But we're really looking at getting kids to say these sentences. And then after that, the sentences, the second and third sentence that they say will relate to it. So I'm not seeing any ideas yet. Could be anything in any content area. I don't know, many of you are teachers, some of you aren't, but you're in classrooms a lot. What do you want? And it could be right, the weather impacts your day. Awesome, it sure does. We got 1 out of 119. Good, fractions are a number on the number line, perfect. Counterclaims acknowledge opposing viewpoints, excellent. Letters make sounds. A few more. Don't let other people do it for you. Impacts passive, good. Now look at these. Would you be happy if your kid said this to you? Especially if they said no taxation without representation. So thumbs up. And then, is it buildable? Is it something that's like worth building up? Is it something that should be in their brain the rest of your life? That's what we're about. I'm not about checking off standards that are just to check off standards to get points on quizzes and tests, and then we move on, right? We're about stuff that lasts, not just these content, but a lot of the language that comes by building up these ideas that you're looking at, right? So if someone says molar mass is the sum of the masses of the components of a compound, it's been a long time. So I would ask something like, well, okay, so what does molar mass mean? And then you would give me a definition of your, maybe something I haven't heard before, your way of defining it in your mind, or you would act it out, or you would draw it out. And so that communication would then help me build up that idea even more. So the more we have that interaction, which, as Doug was talking about, the more we have the interaction, we're also building our social skills, but also our academic stuff. Like words have power. That's 3 words right there, very powerful 3 words that has a lot of potential for building up. Right? And words have power in the positive, words have power in the negative. You can go all over the place with that idea, right? So these are fantastic. I hope we can save this chat. I'm going to move on. I could just read these all day, but you probably don't want to. So the other 2 features, the first one's build up an idea. Actually, here's the hand motion. You don't need the hand motion, but sometimes it'll help, like on a Saturday to remember by Monday. So this is building up an idea. And then the two skills that are probably the most important from like a lot of thinking about this and researching it and watching kids are clarifying and supporting. We often tell kids in writing to do both of these, right? Oh, you know what? You really need to clarify this. Oh, you need some better support here. It's at most, that happens quite a bit. So at least but it doesn't happen in the other areas as much. So when kids are reading, do they really push the author to clarify? Do they ask questions? Now, there is a question the author strategy, which is a nice strategy that kind of does that. But we need to be doing that all the time. We do it a lot. When we're reading articles and we're reading whatever, we are trying to get clarification. I don't know what that words mean. I need to clarify it. Or you're asking the author, what do you mean by that? Now, I have 4 different little kind of question frames that kids can ask each other. And for clarify, it's what do you mean by? Oh, and by the way, the hand motion is this. Everyone do that? I only see about 4 people, but the hand motion is like that. And then, and that is what do you mean by and how? There are others. I'm not saying these are the only 2. If I can hear these 4, there's 2 more coming in a classroom, I'm pretty happy. If I hear 2 kids not prompted by me, not saying you're going to get points, if they just naturally ask those, I am very happy. And then for support ideas, can you give an example of and why? So if I hear those 4 things, and in the right context, not just kids thinking, then and these are also very nice fallback or conversation moves for when the conversation stalls. Has anyone ever seen a conversation stall? That's kind of a joke, right? It happens all the time. And so what we're looking for is kids to build these habits of asking these things when the conversation stops. So if someone says, there's usually something to build on, something to build with in the conversation that they can keep going with. And then, so support is like this. Ever do that? Say support. You have these 5 fingers, and this is the idea on top of it. So you're supporting the idea, not just with 1 finger, or it'll fall, but 4 or 5. And then the final feature that is often missing is filling in information gaps. So information gaps are basically why language was invented. After a while, pointing and grunting and drawing in the sand didn't work. So they started putting these sounds together into words and into sentences and all that, right? And so that's because there was a lot of stuff to do with language between people, right? And so we started to, but if we don't fill information gaps, what happens? If there's no information gap to fill, remember the example of Barb and I talking about the giver, and I share, oh yeah, and Jonas did this and Jonas did that. She's gonna nod her head. Yeah, I know. I was there. I read the book too. But if we start talking about, something that came from either a different book or something that she doesn't know, she's going to be more interested. She's not just going to nod her head and be nice. She's going to ask me questions, probably these clarify or support questions. So that's why, again, jigsaws are great. And a lot of jigsaws just have the filling information gaps. It needs the other 2 features. So how often will you hear kids, when they go back to their home group in a jigsaw, how often will kids ask each other questions? Wait, what do you mean by that? I got to get more. You don't hear that very often. Why? Because they got enough to fill in their little box on their chart. And if that's their main goal, then that's it. You're done. They're going to write with big letters, fill in their boxes, turn it in, and they're going to forget about it. But if they're building up an idea, so if we have those other 2 features, hey, you guys are building up an idea in this jigsaw activity. The idea is up here, the idea is in your, whatever. You guys are building up an idea. That's why we're doing this. It's not just to get points and fill in those little boxes. And if kids start to realize that, okay, well, this is it. This is it. I've got to do something now. I'm going to do a little more now. I'm going to ask clarifying support questions because I want more than just to fill in the box, I'm going to remember that. I need that in my mind, and I need to be, have it clear. And so I'll move on. But so this is a nice. I want you to look for these features in this video. Okay, the kids were shown a picture of a pufferfish, and the the question is, what helps the slow pufferfish stay alive? So you can watch what the teacher does, but mostly watch the kids and also see what they think. Now, it was the same picture, so they had the same text, but they had some different ideas they were going to share about it, which is nice. That will provide something. Okay, and I got to make sure. See if I can make sure yeah, okay. And just look for those features.
I would take it away. If they like if the blood was take out, or it would die. Another different idea. Make the pufferfish have those legs that maybe they can pick them like that. Maybe that's like scratching too. Yeah, scratching and I think we can put them together. He can swim away. The pufferfish really slow. How is it really fast? Made by those fins. What? Made by those fins. That they really quick. Yeah, maybe. Yes, maybe. I think if you make that one idea together, it's like I feel like a puffer get big, like a fish, and you have to eat them, and like when a rabbit eats like slowly, you will eat them, but he can scratch himself. And the scratch himself inside his body, and he would die, right? Yeah. Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah. We make one idea. Okay.
Eddie, what did you guys come up with together?
My idea.
Do I just want your idea?
Our idea is that if it pulls its claws, if the fish gets to its claws and it pokes him, then he dies.
Is that kind of what you guys came up all together? Amy, it looks like you're right. Can you write that down? Our idea is...
So I'm seeing some good comments in the chat. I mean, it's pretty obvious they are building up an idea because they actually say it near the end, right? We built up an idea. Was there, and this is the hand motion for information gap filling, was there an information gap that you saw? Was there a need to talk? Seeing some head nods, and I wish I could talk to everybody, but yeah, they had differing ideas. In fact, the first two kids, actually, they started off a little bit in the, I'd say the wrong arena, right? Like in the, they were talking about, oh, he goes fast, but it's actually a slow pufferfish. So, and then it took them a while. The talk is what kind of helped lead them to, wait, let's keep talking. It wasn't cut off, right away. And the teacher didn't even intervene with those first two kids. And so it was nice that, she let them kind of get to that point, and they actually, ended up building up that idea that they were looking for. They were using, kind of, I would call it temporary language. They didn't have the word spines yet. Who cares? It's going to happen, right? And so as long as they're talking and building up that idea, that's the powerful part. Did you also notice when the kid on the right, he kind of leaned over and said, huh? Remember that? It's not big. It doesn't sound academic, but it's hugely academic, because what kind of move is that? Which skill? You can do the hand motion if you. It's clarify, right? Saying huh? Huh means, or you could say, can you say that again, or whatever you want to say, but it means what you said is important. I think I want to hear it again. I didn't quite get it. I think whereas a lot of kids do not even say huh. I would love it if more kids would say huh. Right? Because they really need to value each other's thoughts and thinking. And so that's just another aspect of this is kind of the validating and the valuing of each other's ideas and thoughts is very powerful, right? Okay. So some oral language strategies. The first, and we're not going to be able to do these because of the number of people, because of the time, and because we're on Zoom. But you'll get a good enough sense. Some of these have videos. This one doesn't have a video of kids, but I'll explain it pretty clearly. I'll try to be clear. Also, I want you to be looking for these features in every one, right? And what are the features? Let's do a quick quiz. Clarify. You see the hand motion. I can't see everybody, but clarify. Good. Looks like that. Clarify. Fill information gaps. I just did that one. Fill information gaps. Okay, good. And support. Good. Support. And then build. Build up ideas. Now, you could also, I didn't do this necessarily, but, argue would be this, meaning build up both sides and deciding which side weighs more. Good. All right, you guys mostly passed. Information gap cards. Each person gets a different card. Now, if we were together and you guys had phones, which most of you do, I would just tell you to get the phone. You could also print these cards up as they're seen here, okay? But if you ever wanted to do this, either in a professional development meeting or whatever, feel free to use these if you want. And most of them do not have complete sentences on them on purpose, because I want the kids to read the information, but also come up with sentences. I don't want them to just read the card to their partner, right? We're really trying to foster face-to-face, eye-to-eye, using complete sentences. They don't have to be complete sentences, but they have to be thoughts, right? And then read your card, try to remember the information. Then pair up and decide who's going to ask the questions on the right, which you can't see yet. There they are. And so this is kind of an interview. It's a structured oral language activity, okay? The questions are there, but look and notice the questions have some good academic language in them, some good terms that you're kind of, in what I call this, sneaking them in there. I like to sneak as much stuff, much language as I can into engaging activities. Because if you sneak too much, or if you don't care about sneaking and you just kind of dump it on them, then you can get some reaction, right? You can get some backlash. But if you sneak it in there and they just, oh, you know what? I think using the word adapted is probably the easiest thing I can do. So they start using the word adapted instead of, using something else. And then also look at the sentence frame, the because I eat. That's a complex sentence starting with the because clause. I'm sneaking that in too. But I might even bring attention to it and say, notice there's a comma after the because clause, not a period. Because a lot of kids will put a period after a because clause, right? And think it's a sentence. So it's just a way to sneak all this in orally when they're actually having a good time. Because what happens is then I tell them it's, what they do is they ask their partner a question, and especially if they only say one sentence back, this is a big deal. You want to hear more than one sentence as often as possible. You want to hear a second sentence as often as possible. Hey, I'll take third and fourth, great, but I at least want to hear a second sentence. Now in the chat, why would we want to hear a second sentence, and what would that second sentence be about? What could it do? Yeah, it could elaborate, it could clarify, it could expand, it could clarify and support, right? What we just talked about, and also, expand, all that stuff. But a lot of times kids think one sentence is enough, or a half sentence, or one word. That is the right answer mentality that we've been unfortunately promoting for so long. It seeps into their oral language. They're just thinking, well, I'm in school, I'm here 6 hours, I just give right answers, right? I just give these short little right answers, as short as possible. Well, we have to change that, right? If we're going to accelerate their language learning, their content, everything else, if we're going to accelerate all that, they have to say more. Now, that's not just saying, it's also listening. But, we'll focus on the saying, the talking, the oral right now. Okay. So notice I also put those in here. What does that mean? There's a clarify and a support even in here with the sentence frames. So then what happens, this is the important part, and it takes time, and I know no one likes to take time, but you meet with 2 or 3 partners. That's why I have 4 cards there. How many people can you meet with? You can meet with 3. So in the third partnership, and I also look at that. This is important. Each time, use the card less, talk more, and have more fun. The fun part's important, especially as kids get out of 2nd grade and 3rd grade. Things don't become they're not as fun anymore for some reason. I don't know why, but this is a way you can improv. Act like the pink dolphin. Act like the okapi. Right? Show it. You're communicating. You're not just, this isn't just a, bland, just talking or right. You can communicate. Act like you're communicating who you are as this animal to your partner. Do it as well as you can, right? Draw it. I don't care. And so that's one thing we're going to really emphasize, right? But by the 3rd time, you can really get that. And a lot of times by the 3rd time, you're borrowing language even from other partners that you've had. So it's a nice win-win, even though it does take a little more time. But then at the end, number 6, after I've talked to 3 partners and I've had my own card and I've said my thing 3 times, I got to practice it 3 times. Then I've got some good stuff for building up an idea. This isn't just about animals. Yes, it's fun. I learn about new animals. I'm not just into that. I want you to build up an idea about adaptation. Right. And if I have to be explicit about it, I will. I'll say, okay, what's our idea? Animals adapt to eat and not be eaten, or something like that. Even if I have to say the idea, and I'll try to get it from kids. If I don't get it, I'll just say it, because they're going to build it up, in different ways, in diverse ways. Any questions? Good. Other examples, 4 different poems about poetry, 4 different works of art, 4 different math problems about, I think it's linear. I think it's more, about linear problems. 4 different reasons to exercise, 4 different types of views on government. Just examples. I have some of these up on my website if you want them. I think it's jeffzwiers.org, and it would be in the tools page if you want them. They're not fancy, let's put it that way. Okay, so another activity some of you are familiar with, same thing. Oh wait, you know what? Let's look at that image right now and think about information gap activity that we just did. Does it have information gaps? Yes, that's in the name. So yeah, the cards are different. That's the easy part. Did I push for clarifying and supporting? Because this is what the teacher has to do. Sometimes the activity just doesn't have it naturally. That one kind of did. If you look at the blue and the red there down there, it kind of did. But you're pushing for it all the time. And then, are you building up an idea? Did we build up an idea in the last one? Yeah, about adaptation, right? So we covered all of our bases there. So pro-con, similarly, I want to look for all 3 of these things, okay? I'm going to show you a high school video. They were preparing to read Animal Farm, and they were talking about communism and capitalism. And I think this one, they were looking at the pros and cons of communism, this particular group. And this was the 2nd time or first time they'd ever done this. So I sometimes like to show these first time things, and I show the changes that we might make afterwards. But just look for these, look for these positives, put them in the chat if you want. Are they building up an idea? What are some of the positives of the interaction? You might notice stuff I've never seen before. Okay. And so, yeah, just take a look. And now the girl on the left is more fluent. And then, so see if there's an advantage, and she already went. The girl on the left already went. See if there's an advantage for both of them to be interacting, right?
So now you're going to switch roles. So now the director becomes the speaker becomes the director. Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons of communism?
So the communism process, originally citizens can be come extra based on their own talents and gifts. So the government can give them a gift for their own talents, and on the other hand,
So I have to say con, and then you
yeah.
have to focus on con.
On the other hand, people are not free to pursue their own interest.
Oh yeah, that's what I said about con as well.
Yeah, because if look, everyone has no talent. Like if you have a singing talent, I have dancing talent, right?
Yeah.
If they give you the gift of singing, if they don't give me dancing talent, I feel bad. So
Yeah.
it's not equal.
Yeah, it's not equal opportunity.
Yeah.
So pro.
So prawn is which reinforce to idea of true human.
Make sure you use one of the transitions.
Okay. So then again, no rule is greater than another, which reinforces the idea of true human equality. No rules. Another, no rules. Like if you don't have your own rules, government give you a rule for the idea of true human equality. So you all have the human equality. Um, on the however, if you don't agree with the direction of society, you could be impressed or worse. If you don't agree with any rules of government, like school rule, you don't agree with the cell phone, right? So they gonna give you suspense, or they gonna call your parents. So it's
Take
bad.
around 10 seconds to tell your partner. Now the director, we were just listening to the speaker. Tell the speaker if they were leaning more towards pro or more towards con.
Okay, so I think that you were more against pros. Basically, you seem to like communism. Is that right?
Yeah.
We hadn't worked on the last part very, very much, but I'm seeing some good stuff in the chat here. And one of the things about this activity is you can't opt out. It's not like, okay, here's a pair share, here's a conversation. It was her turn, and she had to do pro con, right? But it's also not. I mean, in front of the video, it's a little stressful. But in general, it's not that stressful. So it's not like they're doing it up front in the class. It's not like it's like and one of the roles of the directors is to be supportive and keep you talking. Right? It's not to say, "Ha ha, you don't have the last pro," or, "Ha ha," It's really no. Your role as a director, if you want to call the director or helper or whatever, is to keep her talking. Now she was pretty good at second sentences because I'm always listening for that. In fact, most of you and most of us, we feel very uncomfortable if someone says just one sentence to us, or if we just say one sentence to them. We will keep on talking, and we will ask them, we're like, what's your deal? I'll let you get away with it once. Think of a job interview, right? If I answer with one sentence, like, well, why do you want to work here? Well, because I heard it's a great place to work. I'm not gonna, I'm probably not going to get the job, or maybe I'll get one pass. But if I do that again, I'm done. So this is a great way to train kids that in the world, we say more than one sentence. We have to explain ourselves. We are trying to clarify and support our ideas as much as possible, period, right? Any other? Okay. And this is a really good activity for that second sentence focus. So telling kids, if you don't hear a second sentence, you got to ask for another one. Or if you hear two topics in one pro turn, like say she had, when you say pro, and she didn't have a problem with that, but sometimes kids will say two or three. They'll use up all their pros in one turn. You say, wait, Let's go to the first pro that you said. Tell me more about that one. We're keeping kids focused and trying to get 2 sentences out of a topic. Every time they say something, pair share, this pro con, whatever it is, right? We're really trying to get them to say that second sentence that relates to the first sentence. This is the screen I would show you if I were with you guys. And you just choose a topic, same thing. And then the transitions are not optional. The sentence frames are. And I usually, these girls didn't do it, but I usually try to do the hand motion. I say, I want to see the director say pro or con with the hand motion. And then I want to see the talker especially use the hand motion when they say however, or then again, or on the other hand. Okay. And then I'll still have prompt for clarification, prompt for support. If you totally run out of ideas, you can offer an idea seed. Like if I'm talking about camping and you say con, and I go, huh? Oh, can't think of anything. What might you say? Right? You might say, well, what about mosquitoes? And I go, oh yeah, I hate mosquitoes. And I could go on and on about mosquitoes. You gave me that idea, and I keep talking. Right? You're helping me finish out this activity, right? Okay. This is if you really want to do a little Italian, I would do it in Italian. Anybody up for that? I'm not seeing any hands raised. No. So what I would do, of course, is I would also give you some vocabulary to work with, right? And it would take a little while. I'd have to go through this, pronunciation, all that. But in the end, you could actually do this activity, especially using these posters up here. And you could use the visuals, that kind of thing. So you could support this, particularly for students, who need the extra support, language support. But we won't do it. Is that okay? You can also do a version called Similar Different, where there's 2 things, old Brian and new Brian, or 2 historical figures, or a glacier and a river. There's any 2 things that you're comparing. Especially if they fit, the stuff fits in a Venn diagram, that's a little too busy for me. But then you could just say, okay, well, unlike old Brian, new Brian was, I don't know, braver, which came from his experience out in the. So there's these nice, also complex sentences down below. Again, I don't want to force too much on kids. I make them optional still, but a lot of kids will actually say, oh, I'll use that. Why not? And then if they're actually using it in front of another kid, it's more powerful because that other kid is actually listening. It's not just for the teacher to sound like I'm doing academic language, right? It's for communicating. Okay. Like I said, patriots and loyalists, two different perspectives, right? And then most of you have probably seen this activity. I'll go through it pretty quickly, but it's a little bit similar to the information gap cards in that you do have 3 partners, but it's more open. You might not have a card in front of you. You might just be building up your idea. So it's a little more open. What you do is you share, you prompt for an idea, ask a question. Hey, what's your idea now? That's fine. About fractions or about whatever we're doing. And then you just meet with 3 pair shares. That's the essence of it. And yet, it's not a give one, get one, where what do kids do with each partner? What do they do? What's the easiest thing to do? Yeah. Say the same thing over and over. That doesn't help them as much. It can help a tiny bit. But I want it to be stronger and clearer. That's the name of the activity. So I tell kids between every activity, it's got to be stronger and maybe clearer. Clear, I'm not as much stressful about because it's hard to do everything, but try to make it stronger, try to make it clearer than before. Try to make it different in a way that's better. Okay. So if I'm sharing with Barb and Barb goes, then I think like she goes, huh? I go, you know what? That didn't work for a human. I'm going to say it this way. And then my next partner, am I going to say it the first way? No, it didn't work. I'm not going to waste time and then have to say it again. So I'm just going to cut that first, blah, blah, whatever, the unclear way, and I'm going to use the clear way. That's actually a microcosm of our life, right? We don't meet with 3 pairs in a row, but we meet with people all the time, and we figure out what works language-wise and what doesn't. And so the more we can kind of cram that in to a class and, and still make it engaging, the better. And I'll show a video in a minute that's pretty good. So then make it stronger, make it clearer. Often that means borrowing, stealing. Some teachers even call this the steal it activity, right? It's like, okay, call it what you want. But, and then listeners, of course, if it's not quite there, or if you stop, it's a timed activity. So you have a minute. And if you stop, then the listeners needs to get you to keep talking, right? Asking a clarifier support. And then if there's any kind of notes or anything, they're usually reduced. So you'll see that in the next video. Do I have 2 videos? So this just happened a few weeks ago. And there's some look fors on there. If you want to look for engagement, idea building, clarifying support, filling information gaps. The question was on what they'd been learning a lot about birds, I think, birds of prey, but like, what are some animal adaptations? Speaking of animal adaptations. And so just try to notice, and I don't think I have it marked in here in the video, but I'll try to tell you, the second and third partnership. All right. But look for all those. I don't think she has a problem with second sentences. Let's put it that way. Okay.
I feel like the birds beak of them. That's because like it has sharp beaks, like to kill worms and eat bugs, and a really long beak to dig into trees like a woodpecker. And then like it could catch many bugs to eat. And yeah. What does it really mean by? Well, I meant by the beak, it's really, really sharp to kill bugs, and then also long beaks like woodpeckers, they use their beak to catch worms that dig a hole into trees. How did you really know? Well, I actually I meant, are there any more bodies that help them? Yeah, their claws also help them, because the claws also help kill, because they have sharp nails on their feet, right? And then if they an owl, if they want to kill mice, the claws are so sharp that it can kill the mice, and they have a nice dinner.
Second partner.
Sharp claws. And I figured out that their beaks, is also really sharp, so it could kill animals with their beaks or claws. So birds' environments are really good. And the eyes help the owls. That's because they could see in the dark, and the eyes absorb light. So it's they midnight we can't see in the dark, but owls could see really well to hunt and catch food.
She got the eye thing from the first part.
Birds' adaptations are good for them. That's because they say an owl, the beak is actually really sharp, so it could kill animals. Or the claws are actually really sharp also, so it could hunt for mice. And the eyes help it because it absorbs light, so in the midnight humans can't see in the dark, so they bump into trees or rocks. But owls, the eyes help them because they can see in the dark. Why would an owl need its talent? Owls needs talent because if it didn't have talent, it would only have to use its beak, and then I think it usually uses talent to actually kill animals and don't really use a beak.
I'm gonna stop it there. so notice that she didn't use talons initially, and she might not have used it even until that question, but she knew what they were. So it's a nice way to, it's kind of like building up. It's not, she didn't have to ask, well, what are talons? She had heard it, maybe read it before, but now she was using it orally. So that's how that ownership of language happens. I don't want just access. We want ownership, right? We want them to own the language and keep on using it, right? As they build up these ideas. Any other noticings? Did you like that? My favorite part is they have a nice dinner. That's my favorite part. Okay. So this is you recognize the girl, but the boy is the focus here. And if do you guys mind if I go to 11:15? Okay. It'll probably help because I like to show this video. It's nice to see what you'll notice in these three turns, this talk about, and now I said opinion continuum. They didn't really get that idea. It was kind of thrown at them the last minute. So they just kind of made a choice between communism and capitalism. What an opinion continuum usually is as they talk, they might shift their post-it of where they are between the two extremes, based on what they had heard from a partner. So they didn't really do that in here, but you'll still notice his answer changing. Okay, look for three different changes. Obviously, the first two stronger, clearer, and then look for a third change. Okay.
Continue.
Capitalism. Because it's help you, it's give you freedom, and you can do anything. You can do your own business.
Notice how I put in. You don't have to write during his. Just listen. Yeah, just listen and just keep asking him. Get him to say more. Are there any other reasons, or can you give an example?
So is there another reason?
You can. They give you the power, freedom, and I mean you can do anything for your choice. The government didn't interfere your work. They just helping you. What do you want?
My opinion is capital. Not mine, Sorry? So give me an example.
You can buy your own house and sell that house, and you do your own business. You can sell that workshop. You can.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the other partner has to speak now, right? You were speaking up to this point. You could write down a couple of things that they said that you find important and you want to share.
You won't hear her speak.
Okay.
So which is better, communism or
Capitalism.
So tell me why.
Capitalism is good because they give you freedom, and you can do your own job. They never stop you. They give you rights. You have rights to do anything.
What's your name?
Pranta.
That's what that?
P-R-A-N-T-A.
Touch me back right in again.
Alright, just keep quiet. So explain more, elaborate why you think
It's good because example, when you starting a business, they never stop you. You can do your own business. And you do anything for your business. They never stop you.
Give an example.
Like you try to open a chocolate shop, and you buy lots of, and you collecting for all world to collect lots of chocolate for your shop, for famous. You can do that. They didn't stop you.
What you think about the government? Do you think the government should control your business, your land, or do you
No,
think
they didn't control. They didn't control your land. They just give you freedom.
Now, before they switch, this is really important. Before they switch to a new partner, they didn't do it with the last group, but they have each kid take 10 seconds and say, what did you like? What are you going to take? What are you going to borrow from your partner? So it's a way to validate what they say. You know, I like this. And this wasn't scripted, and I really like what the kid on the left says, especially.
When you said that when owning your own shop, you're keeping it, and nobody like you have more rights. I like that. It made my statement more stronger about capitalism and what it does. Explain what did I say that made your statement stronger?
Because you have when you do your own job, I mean your own shop, that money goes to only you, not other people.
Next partner. For this partnership, we want you to try not to use your notes. Try to just remember what your points were and the ideas that you took from the other partner. So put your notes down and try to do it from memory.
By the way, he got the chocolate shop example from the girl in the first
Don't
one.
have to write for this.
You don't have to write, you're just speaking now. So everything you've heard and everything you've said, just speak.
Alright. 90 seconds.
Us.
Which is better?
Capitalism. Capitalism good because you have freedom. You can use it. You have your own rights. You can do anything what you want. Nobody stop you to do that, to do this. You can do anything. Like you try to do a shop, like any big shop, you can do this. The government never stop you. So one example, you have to try a sweet shop, like a big sweet shop, toy shop. You can make it and you can sell it too. And that money you can save, you can take it for only you. Nobody can, other people. And government, they didn't stop you to save that money. You can save that money for your family and your future too. And you can buy your own house too, and you sell too. You can do it. You can buy and sell too, but they give you just freedom, and they give you more power to do your work. They respect your rights and things. What you do. One example is capitalism.
Saved by the Bell. But did you notice he was ready to keep going? His default was one example and I don't know if that was, the way he was in the beginning of the activity, I'm not sure, but that's kind of what we want. If it's one way to keep going in a conversation and also in kind of this monologue type thing, right? So did it get stronger? Clearer? And what was the third thing? There's more than just 3, but what's a biggie? And I've seen it a little bit in the chat. Confidence. Is that important? Yeah, it could be the most important, right? The other stuff definitely we want, but to be confident in talking about academic stuff to other kids is powerful, right? To feel that confidence. And he went the whole time and he was ready to keep going, right? The first time he was kind of like hemming and hawing, stalling a little bit, hoping the other person would take over, maybe a little bit. Happy that the other kid might have been, writing his name and taking a while. It's a lot easier to just kind of write and take notes during these, but no, it's the talking that we're pushing. We're pushing the talking and the listening, right? We're pushing those both talking and listening behaviors. And that would be a thing that I would work on even with this group a little bit better and maybe even the activity itself. Okay, so in the end, you quickly write down some of the key things you got from your partners. right? How was your idea stronger and clear? What were some new building blocks that you got from your partners? Just to hammer it home. You're not just sitting there to nod your head, right? Or clarify questions. That stuff is going into your head. You're using it. And whether it's language or content, whatever. Okay. Great. Thanks for all the comments in there. It's nice to read through these, even though it's multitasking. A lot of people swear by pre and post for a lot of activities, and especially this one. So like a pre-post right would be, you know, here's the big question. Was he right or wrong? This kid writes, he was right on nailing. That's it. He doesn't have any justification at all. And then he has a couple conversations or interactions like we just saw. And then he writes kind of a nice longer piece here. I'm not going to read it. It's just longer. He probably knew some of this beforehand. You can also have them underline the stuff they get from other kids. The great thing about this is you can take them home. You see, hey, there's a big difference that talking made. I'm going to keep having them talk, right? You can also, what I usually do is I have them fold over the first right. I don't want them adding on to it or copying from it. So when after the interactions, I don't want them to look at their first right. I want them to rewrite it again without looking at it, because it's way too tempting to either copy or add to it, right? You could vary that however you want. In some cases, if it's upper grade kids with more to say and more to write, you could have the pre-write be a graphic organizer or just notes or outline, right? You don't have to have a full-on paragraphs because they might not want to write it twice. But if they start with some notes and then, okay, now you guys add to your notes and then write, this is afterwards, add your notes and then write, you're going to get some better stuff. You're going to get more stuff. Sometimes it'll be language, and most often it'll be content. Okay, so this is, we're kind of zooming out now, and not just oral language, but how do we enhance everything with these three features? Did you see the three features in the last one? Let's see. Were they building up an idea? Yeah, pretty, about capitalism or communism. They were building up a claim that they thought capitalism was more powerful than communism, this last one especially. Were they filling information gaps? Yeah, you never know exactly if they both know the same exact information, but the Pranta used the idea of the sweet shop and the chocolate shop that he got from the first girl. He didn't have that before. So she filled that gap for him, right? He used it. So they were sharing, and and you didn't see the kids on the left talking, but Pranta got a lot out of, listening to them. And then clarifying support. Did you see any of that? Now, I had to step in a little bit, and that was the second or third time they've ever done it. So eventually, ideally, they have that in their back pocket, those four moves. Remember what they were? The what do you mean by? And how? And then can you give an example of? And why? Right. So if they have those, that can help quite a bit. So yeah, you heard both of those a little bit, but I had to step in a little bit. And you didn't hear it from Pranta because you didn't hear the other person talking. So let's look. So let's just look at these three features should happen in everything: reading, writing, listening, speaking, conversing, representing, interpreting, all those things, right? All those four letters that there's how many letters are there? 7 that we started off with. So I just have a random list of activities. I'm not endorsing or criticizing them at all. These are just commonly used activities. You can add your own, whatever, but I just put them up there as an activity for you to choose. And I'll give an example first, but then I'm going to have you guys take just a couple minutes and think about how you would tweak it. So we're talking about enhancing activities with these three features. So for example, if I pick on a pair share, that's a pretty common activity. Pair shares have a lot of potential. Let's say, no, they have a lot of sometimes wasted potential. Let's put it that way. We can get more out of pair shares as much as, if we work on it a little bit. So for example, I might tell kids, you guys are about to have a pair share. I want you to talk and listen to build up a key idea. Here's the idea up on the wall or on your whatever. Remember the idea we're talking about? This is going to help you. That's not a big deal to say that. And I would say that, as often as I can, something like that. We're doing this to build it. You're reading this text to build up this idea, not to answer these little questions. We're building it up an idea. And then I would say, when you're listening, you have to ask a clarifier support question, even if you don't think you need it. And this is the slight, I call this a slight bit of inauthenticity, because they don't think they need it, but I still want them to practice doing it. So, and often they will get something back that they didn't expect, right? Unless they say, well, what do you mean by red? But I'll still, for the most part, they're still going to ask. Eventually, they'll get to the point where they're asking more authentic questions, idea building questions. Sometimes they'll have little sticky notes of different colors. Okay, here's a sticky note for clarify. Here's a sticky note for support. I want to see those in the middle between you guys by the end of the pair share, right? Something like that. Just, it's a little bit more of a physical reminder. You can use the hand motions too, and then if I think they're going to share the same exact thing, I give them different text, like you've seen several times, like a jigsaw. Or I might create a prompt where I know they're going to have different backgrounds and different interesting things to share, different opinions, different building blocks. So as much as possible, I want them to be able to share different building blocks for the idea that the other person doesn't have. That's the goal. All right, so in the few minutes we have remaining, maybe take 1 minute, choose an activity from up there, and tweak it in one of those ways that you haven't done before. Like say, you know what, I could do this with Writer's Workshop, or with a gallery walk. My kids, they don't share much. They just fill in charts. This is what I could do to get them to share more. And then put it in the chat if you don't mind. Not seeing anything. People tired? Come on, it's Saturday. Okay, so Writer's Workshop using the 4 moves for clarification. Good. More detail from a partner. Good. And remember that, one of the things we're always reminding them, if you're writing, why are you writing? You're writing to build up an idea as clearly, as strongly as possible for your partner. Or not, or for the reader, not necessarily the partner. For anybody who reads this. And that rubric, yes, I know we'll get some points from it, but that rubric is really to help you be as clear and strong as possible. So if we have kids think in that mindset that, oh, this rubric's here to help me have clear and strong writing, rather than this rubric, I got to get a 4 on or a 3 on or whatever. It's like, it's almost depressing. Like, okay, this rubric's going to help me communicate my great idea to others and help build up their idea, whatever this is. Okay. Great. Now seeing a nice math one. Yeah, clarifying what they mean in math. Great. Solve math problems in groups. Clarify or build ideas. Now, one of the things about, we mentioned math a little bit. Really try to push for that math, building up ideas in math. And it takes a little extra time, but it's not just solving problems, because sometimes, kids will share quickly how they solved a problem. Now, if they have different ways of solving it, that makes it more interesting. There's more information gap, right? Much more. But at the same time, sometimes kids will go through it pretty quickly. I did this, I did this, I did this, right? Even the justification move is really good. Like, why did you do this? That's good. But some kids, like, it's a one-liner for them, Well, I did it because that's what the teacher said. So the more we can build up those higher, I call it thinking above the problems. What are those bigger ideas that we want kids to have in their mind? Especially what are the bigger ideas that math teachers later on want them to have, right? They don't want them just to have these little algorithms of how to solve things and get them right on tests, because the math understanding, needs to build. And when you get to high school, that catches up with you big time, right? If you don't kind of get those math ideas, if you've just been, kind of doing the shortcuts the whole time, pretty soon. Okay. Well, I won't keep you any longer. I think that's a great list you have there. I just wanted to kind of get those brainwaves going. And then here's our next steps. If you want some next steps, completely optional. Pick an activity that you commonly use and enhance it, like we just did. Try one or new talk-based activity that we saw. Right? I mean, we didn't do them together, so that's harder, but you still saw some decent. Play around with them. Send me a video. Send us, video to show what's going on, and we can look at it. Challenge students to converse for 1 minute. This why I didn't get to the full-on back and forth conversations, but the more you observe conversations, the better, and the more kids talk with different kids, the better. 1 minute is not a big sacrifice. Even 2, try it. A lot of kids, that's all they get during the day. So if you can double that, great, or triple it. Keep going. And so those 3 things will be really powerful for moving forward and accelerating students' learning. And then I'm pretty good on email. I don't know if my email's up here somewhere. jzwiers@stanford.edu. Probably should have put it right there somewhere. And that's it. That's all I got.